Hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video. In this one, we are going to be making the perfect sheared summer dress. If you watched my last video, you may know that I'm on a little bit of a mission this summer to recreate a few looks from my Pinterest board that I've had saved. And one of them is a simple sheared dress by the designer Daily Sleeper. This is called the Atlanta dress, and you've probably seen it around because they're very, very, very popular. And they seem to trend every single summer. They've become a little bit of a summer staple in the fashion world. And I've got a couple of these style dresses in my wardrobe already, but they're definitely a little bit more wintry. I wanted to make a really lovely summery version. And I've had a version of the sleeper dress saved in a strawberry print, and I have the perfect fabric to recreate that one. This is a viscose linen fabric from Fabric Godmother. I picked this up back in March at the Stitch Festival. It's gorgeous. It's a really, really lovely weight because it's got that viscose in it. It's not a really crinkly, creasy linen, but it's got that beautiful loose weave of a linen fabric. It's not sheer, so it doesn't need lining or anything like that, and it will be so, so lovely to wear. Originally, when I bought this, I only picked up a meter because I was intending to make a top out of it. But as soon as that Daily Sleeper dress came up on my Pinterest board, I knew I needed to get some more to recreate that. This was sold out everywhere. I couldn't find it, but luckily after lots and lots of time at scrolling trying to find some, I managed to find some on Jenny Stitch's fabric. So I ordered another meter, and hopefully that's going to be enough to make this work. The pattern I'm going to be using for this project is this one here. This is M7946. Now, I know there's lots of tutorials for sheared dresses where you don't need a pattern and you basically use rectangles, but I'm really fussy about the way my dresses fit across the bust. And I find that if you're a little bit more busty, those rectangle sheared dresses really don't fit. You end up with the bodice being really short at the front and then really long at the back. The sleeves don't sit on my shoulders right. I find them really irritating, whereas this pattern here fits me so, so well because it's shaped over the bodice and it also has shaped sleeves too. So it's a really nice fit and very, very comfortable. So I'm going to be using a pattern for this. The original does have channels of elastic in it, but we don't need to do anything to alter it. We're literally just going to shear the bodice. It's super, super easy. I've already got this pattern cut out and I've made a couple of alterations to make it fit me a little bit better, so I'll share those with you in just a second. And throughout this video, I'm going to be sharing lots and lots of shearing tips, and by the end of it, we should have the perfect sheared summer dress. So I've ironed my fabric and my pattern as well because I feel that is essential for accuracy, and it's now time to start cutting. I've decided that I'm going to add 2 extra inches when I cut this on the fold, which will equate to 4 extra inches in total on both the front and the back piece, because I find that anything with a viscose content will shear in really, really tight, especially a lightweight viscose like a challis or even a viscose crepe. They shear in really, really tight, so you want that extra room. I'm also going to try to lengthen this dress a bit if I can. It depends on how much fabric I have available because I know I'm cutting it fine already, but I just wanted to show you the adjustments that I've made on this pattern. So at the top of this pattern piece, you can see that it does already slope down, and I have actually made that scoop a bit deeper. So I've cut the size 12 for this because I do find that this pattern runs quite small. And when I get to here where you start to go into your armpit, I have scooped it down to the size 4. So I've got a little bit more of a scoop, which means it will sit more comfortably under my arm and sit a bit higher across my chest for a little bit more coverage. I much prefer that when I'm wearing these types of dresses off the shoulder because I like to wear a bra and it stops it from slipping down too much. To match that, I took this down at the back as well, so I just cut it along the size 4. It doesn't make a difference in terms of sizing, it's just about where it will sit on your body. So those are the adjustments that I've made to make this a little bit more comfortable. Let's get cutting. Great news, this fits just. I'm going to take this pattern piece all the way down to the bottom of the fabric. I don't think it's going to be as long as I'd like it to be, but it should be just long enough. But I have managed to get the full size sleeve on here as well, and the extra couple of inches that I wanted to add to the width. So I'm really, really chuffed with that. got to say, when you're doing your sleeve, make sure you do not skip marking out these little dots here and here. They're really important because when we fix our sleeve, we're going to stitch up to this dot and then snip across, which makes it sit much nicer on your shoulder and it makes it a lot easier to attach. And then we repeat all of that for the back. Make sure you measure your back piece and make sure it's the same length as the side of your front piece. So firstly, we're just going to reinforce this corner here. So about an inch away is where you're going to start basting. You're going to baste up to this dot here, pivot, turn to an angle, and do another inch up to here on a long basting stitch. Then we're going to snip up to this marking here. Make sure you don't clip through those stitch lines, and we'll do the same that side as well. There's our little line, and we're just going to snip up to this dot now. Now it's time to add some bias tape around this curve so we can insert our elastic. I'm cheating a little bit here. I've got a roll of pre-made pressed bias tape already, and I would totally make matching, but I don't have enough of this fabric left, which is a shame because I really do like to have matching bias binding where I can. But anyway, so first step is this first folded line. You want it coming folding in towards you, and we're going to pin that along this curve, right sides together. I always pin in this little fold here, and that is going to be where we stitch. So pin all the way along. You're going to want to pull your bias tape and shape it as you go around your curve. This is what we are left with. So now I'm just going to go and trim away some of this seam allowance before we press this under. Okay, so I've just trimmed away that seam allowance. The next step is we're going to bring this bias tape, fold it over where we stitched. So it's now on the wrong side and we've got all of these folds inside as well. We're just going to go along and press. Make sure you've got a little bit of excess here. So a little bit of your outer fabric, so this bias tape doesn't show when you're wearing it, because if you press it right up to the edge, you're going to get that peeping through. So I was about to start sewing, I realised that my elastic is actually a lot narrower than this bias tape channel. I've used the wrong size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch a bit further in along here, and that will just make this channel smaller rather than unpicking everything and restarting. It's the next day now, and I definitely think we're going to get this dress finished. It is coming together really quickly. I have made this before, and I think my first time making it, I did it over 3 evenings. So it's a great project if you're looking for something that you want to get finished by the end of a day. I probably could have finished it yesterday, but I was procrastinating too much. And it's tricky filming and sewing at the same time. It takes extra long to get things done. First task of the day is to finish off the sleeve. Now this pattern has an elastic casing on the sleeve originally, but I want mine to look like the daily sleeper dress. So we're going to finish off the edge of the sleeve with a rolled hem, and then we're going to use shirring around it to get a lovely ruffle effect and make it super comfortable. So I'm going to do that first, and then we can get on to shirring the actual dress, and then I think we're pretty much done. I think I've probably missed something out here. We'll see in a bit. Okay, so I'm now going to show you how to do a teeny tiny, very neat rolled hem without a rolled hem foot. So firstly, what we're going to do is just press this under a teeny tiny amount, like 1/4 of an inch, I guess, and finger press, or press if you'd rather, all the way along, trying to keep it as even as possible. And then what we're going to do is just stitch along this line with a regular straight stitch.
So once we've sewn that, we're then going to trim away all of this excess. So grab your scissors, a small pair if you've got some, but I couldn't find my little ones. So I'm just using these for now, and just go along and snip all that excess, making sure that you don't stitch through your fabric here or your stitching line. Once all that excess has been trimmed away, we're going to press this under. I will take this to my iron and then stitch as close to the edge as we possibly can, making sure when to press under to keep this hem as tiny as possible.
Now it's time to attach the sleeves. I've left the elastic out of my sleeves for now. You can put that in if you're following the elastic guide and would rather do it, but I always wait until I can actually try the dress on because I have very small shoulders. I'm very fussy about the fit, so I like to make sure the dress fits right and then I try it on with the elastic in a little bit later. But if you wanted to go ahead and do that, you can do it before we attach the sleeves because it makes everything a little bit less fiddly. So in terms of attaching the sleeves, I've just clipped them in place. So we clip them right up into this little notch that we created earlier where we snipped in. So all the way along there, match them up at the side seams and the other side as well. Just baste this in place because we are going to put a binding over this as well. You can just do it all in a oneer and do your binding at the same time, but I do find it easier to just baste this and then do the fiddly binding afterwards. So I'm just going to do that quickly and then we can get to binding. The sleeves are now basted in place. I've also just kind of pinned them down out of the way before we get to the binding, just so they don't get caught or anything. But just remember, this pattern does require 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we need it here because we want to make sure all of these raw edges and the sleeves and everything are all tucked away neatly. So the same as we did earlier, I'm just going around and pinning my bias tape to the right side of my fabric. It is on the wrong side when you're at the sleeves. Just ignore this because when we attach it, this is going to come up and that will all disappear and it will look very neat. So trust the process with that bit. But for the main dress, you want to make sure that this is attached to the right side, and then the inside of your sleeve. If you're attaching it to the right side of your sleeve, you're doing it wrong. I learned that the hard way. So now all the binding is attached. I've trimmed all the excess like I did last time. So now I just need to go and press this all under as we did before. Now, before we stitch this down, and just an FYI, when you're pressing your binding down around your sleeves, make sure you've not got your sleeve attached. You want to pull that up out the way. Okay, so the binding's all attached. I've left a little gap so we can pop some elastic in a bit later. But now it's finally time to get shirring. So let me show you how I set up my machine and give you some tips on how to get the perfect shirring every time. Let's talk elastic. So in terms of preference, I actually prefer the cheaper elastic. I've tried the Gutermann elastic before and there's not very much on the reel, but also I just don't think it's as easy to work with. Whereas I feel like this one is a lot, I don't know what it is, it just seems to work a lot better with my machine. So this isn't a hemline one. I think it was just a bulk pack that I got from So Essential or somewhere like that. So I'll pop a link in the description box below. I use this one all the time on all my dresses and it lasts really well, it washes really well. So I don't think you have to buy the really expensive stuff to get the best result.
Time to thread the bobbin. So you're going to grab your elastic and you're going to pop it through the top of your bobbin where the little hole is, just to keep it secure. Now you're going to wind your bobbin away from you, pulling as you go, not too tight. We don't want to make it really, really tight. Just a little bit of tension on it, not too much. And then keep winding it round, moving as you go. You can always use your fingers and push the thread along your bobbin if it's not sitting evenly. Make sure you keep a tight grip on that bobbin because this does have a tendency to ping away if you're not careful, but keep going until your bobbin is full. When you cut off your thread at the end, obviously it will ping back a little bit, So don't worry about that too much. Wind the bobbin up, wind the bobbin up, pull, pull, clap, clap, clap. So to put your bobbin in your machine, just going to hold the little tail out at the end, pop it in as normal, grab your top thread and pull out a little bit of excess, pop your needle down and up again, and then I just use the little plate that goes on the bobbin to pull that out. Make sure you do this because it stops it from getting all twisted and stops the tension being fussy as well. So for stitches, I just use a regular straight stitch on my machine, but I do turn the stitch length up to the highest it goes, which is 5 on my machine. Everything else remains the same, including the tension. Although shirring is very easy to unpick, I always grab a test piece and just have a little practice because my machine is quite fussy. This tension is absolutely perfect. It's gathering in a little bit. Just bear in mind when you steam it, it'll go in even tighter, and the more rows of shirring you do, the tighter it goes as well. But when I pull it tight, it doesn't break. It's not too loose, so it is gathering in, but not too much. And you can see from the elastic here that it's not too tight. When it's too tight, you can see the top thread poking through. It kind of makes these big loops. And also when you pull it tight, it doesn't stretch in the same way. It's got no give to it, and sometimes it snaps. So this is perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start shirring. Obviously that wasn't very helpful if you have shirring issues and need some troubleshooting. So I'm just going to talk you through a couple of things you can do if your shirring doesn't work. If your shirring is too tight, it probably means you've wound your bobbin too tight. So the first thing I would do is rewind that bobbin with less tension and try it again. Don't touch the tension on your machine. I very rarely adjust the tension on my machine when it comes to shirring. In fact, I don't think I ever do. I just leave it on its regular tension, and it's always about the tension of the thread on the bobbin. Sometimes it could be the stitch length as well. Sometimes different machines will shear better with a shorter stitch length, but generally they prefer a much longer stitch length. If your shirring is too loose, then rewind your bobbin with much more tension. You can pull it really tight, obviously not completely tight because it will just pop when you let go of it, but you can wind it a bit tighter, try it again, and then just keep going. Unfortunately, it is a trial and error process and it is really annoying, but once you get the right tension for the fabric weight, you can kind of write down some notes if you want to, and then next time you come to it, it will be a lot easier. If it looks loose, like I said earlier, when we steam it, it will come in a lot more, it will tighten up, so don't worry too much if you're looking at it and you're thinking it's not actually shirring much at all. It also totally depends on your fabric. Viscoses will shear in really tight, cottons will be a bit looser, so bear that in mind when you're cutting out for shirring as well. You want a little bit more fabric for something lighter and a little bit less for something a bit heavier weight. Hopefully that answered all your questions, but if you have any more, pop them in the comments and I will help you. But to keep my rows of shirring even as well, I use the side of my foot as kind of my marker. I move my needle all the way across because we're doing lots of rows of shirring, and that means we won't have to do quite so many, but I just follow the line of stitching above with the side of my foot, and that is what keeps me in line. Just to show you again what I mean, these are my two previous lines of stitching. I'm going a bit further back and further down where my bodice is curving up. I'm just going to go straight across to the edge. So this is what it starts looking like, and I do this where this curves down at the side seams because it means that the shirring ends up straight all the way down, and this extra curved bit here across the bodice just gives you that extra bit of coverage if you've got boobs and means you can wear a bra. So now I'm just going to shear all the way around and keep going. So I'm going to stick on a YouTube video and get on with it because it's going to take some time. So when we're starting and restarting our rows of shirring, what you're going to do is stitch and rejoin these two lines at the end. Do a little knotting stitch on your machine if you have one, and then all I do is I lift my needle and my foot, I pull it across a bit more so it loosens up the elastic underneath and leaves a bit of thread spare, and then I line up the side of my foot with the previous row of stitching, pop it down, do a little knotting stitch and start again. And then at the end I just go through and snip off all these bits of thread here. So if your elastic thread runs out halfway through one of your rows of shirring, not to worry, just pop your needle back in, rewind your bobbin obviously, put in a new one, and then pop your needle back in a few stitches back. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little knotting stitch and then stitch back along, covering up those lines so they don't come undone, those stitches so they don't come undone, and then carry on as normal. This looks crazy right now because I haven't got the elastic in, but I'm so pleased with how this is looking so far. I wish it was a tiny bit longer. This is just not my favourite length on me, but I'm going to have to look past that because otherwise I need to buy more fabric for a ruffle, and this fabric wasn't cheap, so I don't really want to do that if I could avoid it. I might at some point though, I'll have a think. But I'm really, really pleased with this. It's absolutely adorable. It's the cutest thing ever. I was just checking how many more rows of shirring I think I want, and I think I just want 2 more so it comes down to my waist, my smallest point. I haven't steamed this shirring in, so it's a little bit big. Once I've steamed it, it will fit a bit nicer, but I'm obsessed with this. It's absolutely adorable. So, so cute. Final step, adding rows of shirring to the sleeve. So what I'm going to do, I want quite a big ruffle around the cuff, so I am going to start shirring about 2.5 inches away from the end of the dress. So I'm going to line up my tape measure with my hem and just mark 2.5 inches, and I'm going to go all the way around and do the same thing and then join up those lines. Don't worry, this pencil does wash out. So this marks where we're going to sew our first line of shirring, and then we're just going to move the needle over and move our foot over, and as we did before, just line the foot up with this line here and keep going for probably about 4 rows. So I've just done 3 rows of shirring, and I think that's plenty because I don't want it in too tight, and it's just giving that really lovely ruffle effect on the sleeve.
finished dress a week later. I've worn this 3 times already, so it's safe to say that it's a new summer favourite and a staple in my wardrobe for the warmer months. I'm obsessed with it. I'm already planning another version because I forgot how easy to wear these sheared dresses are. They're just lovely. And it came together so quickly and easily too. I really hope you enjoyed coming along through the process of sewing this dress. If you have any questions about it, please do pop them in the comments below. But that's everything from me today. I will see you in next week's video. Please do let me know what you think of this dress. Have a lovely week and happy sewing. Bye.